Hi guys, welcome to our rehearsing studio where we film the drum covers you've seen on YouTube. Today I'm going to focus on my snare drum and especially the heads and the tuning of the snare drum. I'm going to change my old heads to new ones and I'm going to show you a little bit how I tune my snare drum. So let's go. The tools that you need to change and tune a drum are a drum key and of course a drumstick. And I'll remove the rim and the old head. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll remove the reso head as well. The first thing I'm going to do is actually I'll put the reso head first. As you might know, I play Evans drum heads, and this time I've chosen the Evans Glass 500 as the snare side head. Okay, now that the head rests on the drum, the next very important thing is to decide where to put the logo. So, now I've placed the reso head on the drum and attached the rim on it and finger tighten the screws. You want to make sure that all the screws are evenly tight. I'm actually making the head tighter by loosening it. When I'm tightening the screws, the head will stretch a lot, so I'm trying to stretch it. I'm basically teaching it how to stretch. Now that the head is stretched and the screws are finger tightened, I'll start the tuning. I'm tightening the screws in a clockwise way. First I'm starting from the top and then I'm going to the opposite screw and then I'm going to the side and going to the opposite screw and then vice versa to all the screws. Be gentle when you're turning the screws. Only a little nudge. I think a quarter is enough. The reso head on the snare drum is kind of a special head because it needs to be as tight as you can get it, almost. All it needs to do is to resonate enough to make the snare wires do the buzzing sound. That's why I will make the snare bottom head very tight. And here we are. This brings us to the magical part of drum tuning. This is where I listen to the head, how it sounds by tapping it with the stick. And I'm trying to reach an even sound near every screw. Obviously, when the sound is lower, you'll need to tighten the screw to make it higher. So we're playing with the pitch here. Especially on the snare drum, I don't think the resonant head is as important as the batter head, because this is so overtly tight that it will not resonate as much as the batter. You'll know when it's good when the sound on the center is consistent and there are no irritating overtones on the sound. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the snare wires. You want to make sure that the wires are at the center like this, and then you can flip the drum over and move on to the batter head. I'll place the head and try to match the logos on the bottom head and on the batter head. Alright, finger tight they are. And next the same thing that I did on the reso head. Start the tightening small quarters at a time on the opposite sides, like this. Right, now that you've gotten the head a little bit tighter, although not still the hitting tight unless you love the fat sound, you can continue to do the tightening clockwise or anti-clockwise or whatever you like. Alright, now it sounds that the drum is a little bit low pitched, and that's why I'm going to tune the reso head a bit higher. One thing I'll do while tuning is I'll damp the head with my finger so that the whole drum won't resonate when I hit with the stick. Basically, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make each of the screws match with the pitch of the sound I want to hear. Now that both of the heads are installed, it's better to tune them both at the same time. One thing you want to use with the reso head, you can't really tune it with the snare wires on. So here's one trick I'm using. Take another stick, put it underneath the wires and let it rest on the rim. This enables you to hear the resonant sound without the buzzing of the wires. In my taste, you really can't tune it too high. It's very tight. Be careful not to break it while tapping it. Okay, now how do I know when the sound is ready and when I've tuned it enough is I'll actually get the snare drum with my kit and play it around for a while. But I think you learn to listen to your drums while you change the heads and play them frequently, and you'll learn to know when you've reached the needed pitch. All you need to do is use your ear and try to find out what suits for you. For now, the wires, they resonate a bit too much, so I'm going to start the adjusting. Turn the wires all the way down to the loosest point they can be, and then I'm gradually starting to adjust the wires tighter. Fortunately, this Black Panther snare drum has the tightening screws on both sides, while most of the drums have the tightening screw only on this side, so that makes it a bit harder. Tighten the screws and listen. Gradually bring it tighter and listen. What I'm doing with the wires, I'm trying to find a sweet spot between a bit too tight and a bit too loose. So to say, you don't want to over tight the wires. Basically, when the wires are looser, they will rattle more and there will be more buzz in the sound. And when you make the wires tighter, also the buzzing will be shorter. But when you over tight the screw, then the buzzing will come back. As you may have heard, this snare drum is a bit ringy and the sound is very long, but I like it that way. I like the snare drum to have the ring on it, and in order to get snappy and tight sound out of this ringy snare drum, you will need a tight noise gate when you record the drum, and I think that pretty much characterizes the sound of my snare drum. Make it tight, make it ringy, and use a tight noise gate. Alright, thanks for watching the video. Here's how I tune my snare drum. I think the most important thing to remember is just to be patient enough and take your time with the snare drum and with the tuning, and finding your sweet spot on the pitch of the snare drum. So that's about it. See you on the next drum cover.